Back in the 1980s, I know that was a long time ago, but my father and I spent many, many months over one summer building new fences on our farm. What we'd do is we'd clear away the old fence because it had got rusty and broken down because we had a lot of salt winds in that particular area of New Zealand. And um, we'd clear it all away and then we'd make a new fence. First, we'd get some brand new posts, and we'd have like this big machine on the back of a tractor, and it would drive the posts into the soil. Then we'd run out wires and staple the wires to the fences and make them strong. Then the last thing we would do is to put wooden battens on the side of the wires and nail them up tight, and it would look absolutely fantastic. And then one of the things that I remember the most was we would stand and we would look at the fence and we would take it in and we'd say, yeah, this is a good job. Well, you could have you've done a little bit better, but we would take it in and admire our workmanship. You see, these sorts of tangible things need to be nourished into our souls. We had created something and it felt really good to look at our handiwork. And every time we built a fence, we got a little bit better, just a little bit better each time. And I'm not sure whether I could go back now, say 40 years later, and if the fence would still be there. You know, those salt winds can be very harsh on fences and wires and so on, but um, I think it may well still be there. But there's a tangibleness to that fence line. There's a tactileness that I can go back and I'd say, I have built this. I can see it. I can feel it. I know it's there. And often when I'm thinking about tangible things in my life, I go back to that fence line and say, this is something that I've accomplished. And the world has changed a lot since the early 1980s. And um, I wonder, do people, particularly young people, have those moments of a tangible, tactile activity nourishing the brain um, and its creativity? Do they have do they have a grounding with the ground and not just the gigabytes? Okay, an observation I've made is that the world is becoming increasingly more and more digital, intangible, and abstract. People spend hours and hours and hours in front of a screen, like what I'm doing now, and at the end of the day, there is no physical, tangible, or tactile outcome. You see, I'll write this particular post. I've written this post, and it'll probably take me about 8 hours in full crafting out all these megabytes for you. And with a digital click on a button, poof, it's gone. It's published. I couldn't have done that some 40 years ago when I was building that fence. Instead, it would have been printed on some paper with tangible, messy ink and distributed via post with hand to hand contact, all very tactile, all very tangible. I often talk with people either on the verge of burnout or fully in it. In their brains, the pendulum of the mood swings, goes from depression to anxiety, and it feels like it's stuck there. And I often ask with a gentle sense of curiosity, um, what do you do in life? What type of activities fill your days? Are they tangible or intangible, tactile or abstract? We know very little about Paul, the Apostle Paul, um, but he had a craft, and he would. I don't even know how good he was at it, but we know a lot about his theology and how he talked about God. But Paul, yeah, he was actually a tent maker, and he had a trade. He was a tradie, and it says in Acts this: after Athens, Paul went to Corinth. That is where he discovered Aquila, a Jew born in Pontius, and his wife Priscilla. They had just arrived from Italy, part of the general expulsion of Jews from Rome ordered by Claudius. Paul moved in with them and they worked together at their common trade of tent making. But every Sabbath he was at the meeting place doing his best to convince both Jews and Greeks about Acts. Now, I don't know what it was like, but I imagine Paul sitting with Aquila and Priscilla in some sunny Corinthian courtyard with needles in hand, creating a tent for a customer. Conversations would ensue about the price of leather, who makes the best needles, how they learn their trade, little techniques might have been shared, and that first tent that Paul made, and man, what a disaster that one was. Oh, I don't know. And then they'd share stories about tent making. And then perhaps the conversation would weave its way into, notice, weave its way into thinking about some aspect of faith. But at the end of the day, they would look at the physical tent they were making and have a sense of satisfaction and accomplishment. There was something tangible and tactile. And I also wonder about Jesus. He was the son of a carpenter. So he may well have learnt many of the skills of carpentry. And as he was walking along the road, he may have been whittling away at a piece of wood, and perhaps he had to fix a certain roof about after some enthusiastic followers ripped it apart to let someone down for healing. Perhaps he got up and fixed it. I don't know. But he certainly drew his teaching stories from the tangible and the tactile of soil and seed, wind and rain, and the simple and known grounded reality of daily lives. Have you ever noticed, that a tightrope walker is always out of balance? We talk about work-life balance. Well, it's not true. You can never get perfect balance. You're always adjusting, right? Always. And that tightrope walker, he has got this auto correction going on, even if it's microscopically tiny. I don't think much of the world is out of balance. I think it's tipped over into the intangible and abstract, and that we desperately need more gardeners, tent makers, woodworkers, chefs, painters, dressmakers, potters, card makers, bookbinders, you name it. People who are working with the tactile and the tangible. And I don't know whether there's been any research done, but perhaps those who do have a healthy balance of tactile and tangible um, may have better mental health. I don't know. As a gardener, you see, I spend days out in the dirt and the wind and the rain and the flowers, and some days it's good, sometimes it's terrible. But I also need the time for a good book to read, or five, and I've actually just ordered some more because I love reading. And I love to discover and explore the intangible world of ideas and theology and soul. But it's the helping professions that really concern me the most. Those who spend much of their time with people in need, caregivers of the sick, disabled, counsellors, spiritual directors, pastors, doctors, nurses, social workers, teachers. It could be the parent of children. Maybe the daughter or son, a daughter and son is caring for an elderly, unwell parent. It might be the spouse caring for the needs of the one they love. It can feel like a constant giving out to the empty cups of others. Energy being given out to the abstract and intangible. You look at your day's expression and wonder, has this made any difference at all? And you know that tomorrow will be much of the same, and the next day too. Rob Bell says that despair is when you fall under the belief and conviction that tomorrow will simply be a repeat of today. And I'd like to say, what could be the tangible and tactile gift that you need to balance your life with? Is there a hobby you could dive into? A tiny little gift to yourself at the end of the day. For me, it's the intangible, it's the reading, it's the writing. But what would be a tangible, tactile gift for you? It could be knitting, it could be painting, it could be making little models. I don't know. But something that at the end of the day you can look upon and say, I made that. Here's some quotes. Despair is what happens when there's a lack of new creation, when things are just what they are, and there's a deep sense of impotence that there is nothing you can do about it. Rob Bell. Boredom, cynicism, despair are spiritual diseases because they disconnect us from the most primal truth about ourselves, that we are here. Rob Bell. If you have a garden in your library, everything will be complete. Marcus Tullius Cicero. A garden is a grand teacher. It teaches patience and careful watchfulness. It teaches industry and thrift. Above all, it teaches entire trust. Gertrude Jekyll. Gardens are not made by singing, "Oh, how beautiful," and sitting in the shade. Rudyard Kipling. Knitting is very conductive to thought. It is nice to knit a while, put down the needles, write a while, then take up the sock again. Dorothy Day. I love that. See, there's a balance between knitting and writing, picking up the sock, putting it down. You will find something good in the woods, something more in the wood. Sorry. You will find something more in woods than in books. Trees and stones will teach you that which you can never learn from masters. St. Bernard. He who works with his hands is a labourer. He who works with his hands and his head is a craftsman. He who works with his hands and his feet and his heart is an artist. St. Francis of Assisi. Questions. Do you spend most of your time in tangible or intangible? The tactile or the abstract? Number 2. What are some balancing activities for you? Number 3. What nourishes the cup of your life? Hey, I hope you found this helpful, and I just so enjoy writing this stuff and giving it out to people and I think it helps a lot of people. If you want to write to me and talk about this one or anything else, it's barry@turningthepage.co.nz. And just another big thank you to people who support what we're doing here. If you want to become one of our financial supporters, that would be wonderful. It's turningthepage.co.nz/give. Hey, until next week. Bye.